Hello, everybody. I'm Carolyn Burke from Mystic Moms, and I'm super duper excited to introduce and invite my dear friend Bija to join us in this conversation today. Bija Repta, she is on faculty actually at David Tree School of Yoga, and she's an expert in Ayurveda, which is the sister science to yoga. She also is mom to two beautiful children. And today what we're going to talk about is how Ayurveda can save your family. And I'm really excited because I think some people have heard some terms being thrown out like doshas and constitution, or some of these terms to describe people but might not know how it fits. And I think it fits incredibly well for us moms in understanding how to work with our family, our kids, and ourselves. So what would you say about that, Bija? Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here and share some little tidbits that will hopefully be helpful as we're parenting together. You know, the more collaborating we can do as moms and just get as much information as possible, I think having all of that extra access is so important to really be out there. So thank you to you for inviting me, and also for all the information from your beautiful Mystic Moms course and this collaboration that kind of made me think about, oh, I love that whole concept of your Mystic Moms, and it makes sense from an Ayurvedic perspective of our uniqueness.
Okay, and how everybody's unique, and how does that impact us in our parenting?
Right. So as a parent, we have our own unique combination of the dosha. So that word that you were mentioning, dosha, that is very much an overriding principle of Ayurveda. The doshas are based, in simple terms, they're based on the elements. So the idea is that we all living beings, not just human beings, all living beings have a combination of air, space, fire, water, and earth, the elements. And our own unique combination kind of governs what we are in the world, like how we are. So how our personality might present, how our habits present, how we interact, how we react. So those doshas we have in our children, we see in our children, those element mixtures, and also in ourselves. So when we were chatting about thinking about parenting from an Ayurvedic perspective, the first thing that came to mind is how different our children can be from each other.
Oh, yeah.
In the same environment, the same, like close together even sometimes.
Yep.
Are entirely different beings when they come out. So we might think we have it all figured out with our first child of, oh, this is what going to school looks like, and this is what this being at a party or social gathering looks like with a child. And then boom, comes number two, number three maybe for you, and then like, what? I thought I had this figured out. They're all so different from each other.
Hugely. I've heard so many moms, I think Bija and I were talking about this, so many moms that are like, well, there's this child and they act like this, and then there's my other child and they do this. And what the heck? How am I supposed to parent both of them?
Because we want to be so fair, right? We want to come from this place of treating them the same.
Yes.
But if what they need is very different, it's not going to work. Like, why is this working for this child and not for this child? So coming back to the idea of the doshas, Vata, Pitta, and Kapha are the words that are used to describe the doshas. And a Vata child, just to give you a little taste, a Vata child may present as very creative, can really move from one thing to another very quickly and release things easily. It's over, boom, done. And just has this like beautiful creativity, but their head might also be in the clouds. That's the air element of la la la, daydreamer. Yes. And then a Pitta child might present more fiery, like that heat that comes with Pitta. So that might show up as a temper tantrum. It might show up as sharp words. It might be indigestion all the time. So very different. And then a Kapha child that has a lot of Kapha in their constitution, because I always say we're not our doshas.
Okay.
They're part of us.
Okay.
So the Kapha child that's predominantly Kapha will be usually very attached to ideas, to people, love stickiness of community, be very loving and nurturing, and want to be around people, want to do things with other people, be very steady and calm personality. So even just with those few different words, you can see that they're not opposites of each other, but there are pieces that feel kind of opposite.
Yes.
Right? So as a parent, we have our own doshas that we're coming in with.
Yes.
We tend to parent in a very fiery way, lots of yelling and just like excitement even, and passion. That might be like a little intimidating for some kids and not for others. So really knowing yourself first and balancing your own doshas is super important when you're dealing with kids, because then when you have that compassion for yourself of going, oh, I have this piece of myself figured out.
Yes.
It helps so much with those beautiful children that you can say, oh, I get you. I get why this is happening. It doesn't mean that you have the perfect answer, but that you have compassion for that of, oh, that's why you are so slow moving at the mall or in the morning, or when we're trying to go somewhere and everything is just slow and I'm going fast, and like all of those things that happen every day in our lives with our coworkers and friends and partners too.
It's like a huge body of work, but the way you're describing it to me feels like, okay, I'm really excited, because I think about myself being more on the Vata end, a little bit more up in the clouds or windy. I don't know how you say it.
Yeah.
Crazy, moving from one thing to the next quickly. And one of my children has much more of a kapha tendency. So getting her going has historically been challenging, like getting her going in the mornings, or even if there's like a transition, like, okay, now we're going to go pack our suitcases to go away. And it's like, no, you're not going to move me. I don't want to be moved at all. Right. And so I think you're right that the balance of knowing how you interact with your child's dosha is really helpful.
And that it's not just going to work to just do it one way for each child. And it's okay to treat them fairly, but individually. So for that child, like that resistance to change is such a kapha characteristic.
Yes.
Whereas a vata characteristic, for example, would be like, oh yeah, we're going to do this. Oh yeah, we changed our mind. Now we're doing this. No problem. Yeah. But if I have attachment and I feel like, oh, that's scary, that could be scary. There could be resistance. So really knowing your child in that way, in that deeper way, really helps with what's going to get you motivated, or even just acceptance that you're not trying to change it, that you're not trying to fix, that you are just coming at it with some perspective and compassion, that the household's just happier. It's just not as much struggle. Right?
Totally.
And I love that example that you gave. It makes me think about my own kids too, of the differences being so close together. People always say how much they look alike. Well, their personalities are very different from each other. Mm-hmm. And as I was thinking about the doshas and kids, it reminded me of this example just came flying into my mind of walking my daughter Sky to school. When she was 7, 8 years old, she was already like flinging my hand when we were holding hands walking, like flinging it away. Mama, do you think you could walk behind me a little bit? Independent, I got this. Totally, I want you there, but maybe not right with me. I want to be a big girl.
Yeah.
And my son, Zen, very different. Still has no issue with snuggling up to me and saying, I love you in front of his friends. He's 6'1" and 13 and a half. Right? Like he never let go of my hand walking to school. I was waiting for it, right? That second child, I'm like, oh, so 7 or 8 is when they let go of your hand. No, he would be like, right, not just holding hands, but like snuggled right in.
Yes.
They need us to recognize that they are individuals.
Yes. And this dosha, to me, this dosha idea is so helpful because it's like it's normalizing in a way. Like, you know, like, oh, like everyone doesn't have to be the same as me. Like we all have different, like you said, it's not just personality, it's all of these tendencies that are making up our whole constitution.
That's a great word. Yeah, your tendencies and what you're drawn to and how you act and react, and that we can nudge our kids in certain directions. We can guide them to help, like your example of having a slow mover,
Yeah.
right? That's just part of her. It's the way she is.
Yeah.
Bringing in things that have movement will balance. So we say often in Ayurveda that I say balance is everything.
Yes.
I'm a Libra too, so I'm all about balance. And that opposites are like increases like. That's a big philosophy, a principle of Ayurveda. Like increases like.
Okay.
So if you have a child that's slow moving and they're like lying on the floor to read their book with a blanket and a pillow, it's just going to increase that I am not budging feeling.
Yes.
It's heavy. There's a heaviness to that. But if you even encourage, hey, let's go for a little walk and then we'll come back and read together, and you're sitting up in the chair, still being cozy, but it's like bringing things up, right?
Okay.
Like increasing movement will balance non-movement. So it's all about bringing the opposite in, the opposites balance.
Okay.
So if I'm fiery and I'm heated, being cool, like even bringing in foods, like offering that child a cool water with cucumber slices.
Okay.
Literally cool down
that
fieriness.
One of my children is more fiery, and she's always saying, can you turn down the heat in the house? And I'm like, what? I don't want to have to turn down the heat in the whole house just for you. But it is that kind of like, I'm on fire.
Yeah.
I kind of get it.
Hot.
It's
and
like
vatas run cold.
Yes.
So that's a perfect example of how do you compromise and make that work. Do you put on a sweater, another layer? Do you encourage her to put on a t-shirt in the winter because she's too warm? It's balancing.
It's so cool to me. And so what have you noticed with people that you've worked with in terms of changes that have happened in their family once they've kind of come in contact with Ayurveda?
Yeah, that was a cool thing for me because I've taught the course numerous times, and I would say at the beginning, it was coming from a self perspective, right? Like, let's figure ourselves out together through the lens of Ayurveda with compassion and love for ourselves.
Yeah.
And as it progressed, I kept hearing over and over again from students, like, I literally heard, this saved my marriage. This information saved my marriage. Not I saved their marriage, that the information of figuring herself out and figuring her partner out saved a relationship. And then kept hearing even just people talking amongst themselves, like, oh, they're feeling like tears about, oh my God, I get my kid now. I get that. That's why we're doing this, because I'm coming from this perspective and he or she is coming from this perspective. So I always say now that Ayurveda is not just a philosophical study. It's like practical tools that just have you walking through life with more compassion for where other people are coming from, in the work environment, in the home.
Yes.
Friendships even. We're not all the same.
Yes. And it's so interesting that the focus is always on balance. So I can look at, as a mom, I can look at really balancing myself first so that I can then be more aware of what my kids actually need. Right. So here is where I've got to begin.
Right. Yeah. I would say that that's a huge starting point, and aha moment for me too was, oh, okay, figuring myself out first, or at least, not getting to so if you have a big Pitta constitution, that could be, oh, figuring myself out 100 million% first. Like, I have to do it perfectly. It's not about perfectly or 100%. It's just about understanding ourselves better.
Yes.
And then bringing that to the table. It doesn't have to look like anything in particular.
I love that. And so I think like, okay, so how do we figure out what our doshas are? Like, what would somebody do if they're on this journey and they're brand new to Ayurveda and they want to know more about what their kids are and who they are and how it all fits together?
Right. So I would say if you could seek out an Ayurvedic doctor and actually make an appointment and go and figure out your dosha that way. That's not accessible for everybody. They're hard to find, especially if you're not in a big city. So a starting point would be to do dosha quizzes. And I would really recommend doing several, because any one little test or quiz is not the be all end all. So I love doing maybe 3, 4, coming back to it a different day, looking at it, and then kind of getting an overall picture and knowing you might not have a perfect answer, but you will be more aware, like, I see myself in this, I see myself in this, and have a better understanding.
I love that. So we can provide, are there a couple that you'd recommend, Bija?
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll definitely have a link in the video at the bottom of the video so that you can check out ones I know for sure have a lot of thought and mindfulness behind them.
Great.
Yeah.
And then you're always a little bit cautious too with us when we get on the dosha bandwagon. What's the caution about?
Right. So, So the caution is about labeling. And I did it myself when I first was learning. And when we're new students in a group, definitely labeling helps us understand.
Yes.
But the caution, even the first weekend of my course with students, is that you are going to start looking at the world and labeling. That's kapha, that's pitta, that dog is acting pitta, my child is pitta. Oh, you're so pitta. Like that whole thing of, oh, you should on the shouldn'ts. So I always say, I'm going to get a t-shirt made. Don't should on people and don't should on yourself. As soon as we start doing that, it becomes prescriptive. It becomes, oh, I know what's going on with you, and it's because you're this. So we are not our doshas. We are a combination of so many things. Our doshas are part of us.
Yes.
So the caution would be to not be hard on yourself. Okay. Because every single dosha has light and amazingness and positivity and a shadow.
Okay.
Kind of like if you're familiar with your zodiac signs, they all have like really awesome. It's really awesome to be a Libra or a Leo or a Capricorn because of this. But the shadow this is the hard part, the challenge.
Yes.
And so we can be hard on ourselves when we're learning our doshas of, oh, I shouldn't ever eat hot sauce if I'm pitta, for example.
Okay.
So it's like going too polarizing.
Okay.
Or labeling others, labeling your spouse, like this, or your partner, or your friend, or your child. Oh, you're kapha. So this, and this. You shouldn't do this. You should do this.
Right.
So using it as information that you're gathering for understanding rather than to be labeling.
I love that reminder. I need it. Because I would have that tendency too to want to just say, okay, well, this is what you need, and let's just do this for you. And you're right. It's like compassion. And also it reminds me, Bija, of moms that are hard on themselves, that, so many moms that I've worked with, it's about, we're not feeling good enough as moms. And this can't be something to add to the list of, well, not only do you have to get organic food into your kids' lunches, and you've got to get them to bed at a certain time every night so they get enough sleep, and you got to make sure they're not on their social media if they're older. You also have to know their dosha, and you have to know how to do this, this, and this. It's like, no. That is not what we're talking about here. This is really about having compassion, is what you're saying.
Yes. Yeah, to me it is. It's about seeing the world a bit differently with some more information and compassion, that I understand you better. I get you better. So it's not going to be so much of this.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. I love that. And I'd like to help other people. I feel this will be really helpful for people to learn more about themselves and learn more about their families. And isn't that what it's all about? Is just to have a greater understanding. So I know when I've been in those stressful times in my life, it's so helpful to be able to step back and say, okay, what kind of tool can I use to help me here?
Absolutely. The more tools we have in our tool belt as parents, the better, right? Yeah. And the community, like having community to, like the Mystic Moms community, where you can feel like, oh, I'm not going crazy. Like other people are experiencing this. This is normalizing all of the stuff that happens every day in our households. where we do that to ourselves of, oh, I'm not doing enough, or I'm not enough, or I'm not worthy of these amazing beings because I'm blowing it. Like we all have blowing it moments on a regular basis. I believe, from talking to other moms and other parents, right? We all blow it at certain times. In retrospect, you can only do your best in any given moment.
Yeah. And always go back and apologize if you need to, or own what happened, right? So a lot of it is also understanding our own emotions ourselves as moms is our energetic power.
Yeah. And there's so much information out there that comes from a perspective of the shoulds. Like, as a parent, you should be doing this, or your child should be at this milestone at this age. Like, all of those shoulds are so difficult to live up to, and they're not necessary. It can be taking that time to figure out your child. Like, maybe you try to come from a different perspective after you've learned a bit more about yourself and your dosha, and it doesn't work. So figuring out what drives them, what works for one child as a motivator even doesn't work for the other. So it's a lot of practicing.
Yeah, totally.
The life is a practice, right? Yoga is a practice. Meditation is a practice. Parenting, I don't think we like to admit that we're practicing on our kids, but I totally am.
I love it. Well, I mean, there's no other way to do it but throw you into the fire, right? So if we had manuals to help us with these kids, we'd be reading them, but because they're all so different, I think this is so helpful for me, is to be reminded that I have the ability to draw on other tools to help me to remember how different we are and how to balance each other out, and not expect everyone to see it my way.
Right.
Yeah. And these balancing things, I feel like that's just so helpful for me to remember, like, okay, if somebody's really having a hard time moving, I can bring in more activity and energy. If they're super fiery, I can cool them down. And then if they're super up here, what do I do if they're the Vata energy to help if the child is kind of starting a project, not finishing it, or?
Yes. So if you think about back to the elements, I always try to super simplify it back to the elements. So the dosha Vata has air and space. Okay. So what would be the opposite that will balance that is the ground. Okay. So grounding anything in the earth, literally taking a Vata child outside and taking your shoes and socks off and putting your feet in the grass or the mud or the dirt or the concrete, wherever you are, the earth, and picturing maybe just a deep breath of picturing roots coming out of your feet. You can do that in the house too, to ground. Okay. Or even have them, if they're younger, even have them stomp their feet. Like, let's stomp our feet. And you stomp your feet on the ground, and you're getting some grounding in. And then there's a whole realm of food too, of some grounding foods for that body child. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I won't make you go into so much detail, because I know it's a lot. Like, and this is something you've been studying for years. So this is not like a simple, fast little thing, but yet it's an invitation, I think, to say, this is something you can use to help you.
Absolutely. And there's just so much to it, like yoga. It's so simple, but it's very complex in all of its layers.
I love that. Yeah. There's a lot of layers to parenting.
Oh my gosh. Yes, to every day of parenting.
And this applies when we think about our children, Bija, it still applies when they're little all the way up, right? Like, even when you're holding a babe in arms, it would still apply, right? To figure all these things out, like as their personality starts to develop more, I guess. Right.
Because in Ayurveda, they would say the seasons of life are also have a dosha applied to them. So brand new babies, very kapha-like, lots of literal goo and snot and like attached, right? They're attached to literally need to be attached to be healthy and to thrive. Yeah. And then kind of the middle part of our life is our like driven, ambitious pitta part of our season of life. And then Vata comes later as we start to be more like 65, depends what you read, but like 65 and up, or even 60 and up, we start to have more Vata time of life of the not being as focused. Maybe you're not working anymore. You don't have to have all of this data in your brain all the time. So
Yeah.
creativity might come in with that freedom. And then physically too, that we try out as we age, and bakas have a lot of dryness and air and space associated with it. So all of that, the seasons, like the literal fall, spring, summer seasons winter have doshas attached to them. Yeah. So just going by the rhythms of nature, if there's a place to start when it becomes overwhelming, when you're first learning, I would say start with the rhythms of nature. What season is it? What dosha is attached to that season? How can I balance in that without even having to figure out where you fit in that?
Oh, I love that. Thank you for simplifying. And if people want to know more about this, Bija teaches down dogs and doshas, an Ayurvedic perspective on, what's the title? An Ayurvedic approach.
Approach.
Yes.
To yoga. And it's a yoga and Ayurveda course.
Beautiful. So if they're interested in that, when does that begin, Bija?
So the next beginning of the course is coming up soon, end of May, in Owen Sound. And then we will also have a weekend together at the end of August and the beginning of October. So we always try when we're planning the course to go over the 3 doshas somewhat, so that you can feel in your body the heat of summer, and that's pitta time of year, and how you can balance. You can literally feel it in your bones and in your body, so that it makes more sense and resonates.
Oh my goodness. It's such an amazing thing that we have you available to share your knowledge, and not just with the community at large, but here with these mums. I feel like this is going to be really helpful to give us another little angle. And I'm excited to hear what people have to say about this and to share their ideas and thoughts, because it's a whole other area. And it's another way that yoga and the science of yoga can support us in our day-to-day lives.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And you don't have to do it perfectly. And I certainly do not do it perfectly.
Do I?
And that's okay.
Cheers to imperfection.
Cheers.
Mm-hmm. And also the uniqueness. I think that's how you started this conversation, Bija, is that you really reminded me of how unique we are and how unique our children are, or our family members are. So that's such a good reminder for me.
And it's such a cool thing that's so simple. 5 elements, but the combinations of those elements make up millions of combinations, and no 2 people are exactly the same in their combination.
Love that.
Yeah.
So we'll put a link for the dosha surveys that you have been approved, like not approved, but certainly that you've tried, that you think are good ones, so that we don't get overwhelmed. And absolutely check out Bija at davidtree.com if you're interested in her upcoming course in Owen Sound. Thank you so much. This is our Dosha Darling. And I love you so much, Bija. It's so wonderful to connect with you and to share your knowledge in this way.
Thank you, GOT. Carolyn, I love you. And that was so much fun.
Yay!
Thank you. And I love all you moms out there that are diving in deeper and trying to just find that support. We all need support systems.
Thank you. And thank you for being part of my support system, and now part of all of this support that we can share with others. Like you said, community is such an important part of parenting.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Namaste. Thank you. Namaste.